the rundown with Ramon. I'm honored and excited to interview my friend Mike Michalowicz, whose name half of you know, the other name half of you are like, why should we care? That's okay. We'll get to that right now. Mike Michalowicz, God bless. Good to have you here. How you doing, brother?
Ramon, God bless you, man. It's great to see you.
Thank you. Good to be
Yeah,
seen.
usually it's on the road we see each other in somewhere. It's
Yes,
rarely that we meet up in New Jersey, even though we're in the same state.
yes,
We're
we could probably
neighbors,
yell, and I think you're 20 minutes
probably.
from me, but it's all
Yeah,
good. That shows the true admiration for what we're doing. So, Mike, you have a new book coming out, All In.
I
What
do.
book is this? And before, what book is this? What number is this?
It's if you look at the stack there building up, it's that one. That's number 11.
Okay, I love it.
And these are all the translations that are happening, and it goes
Beautiful.
way down.
I love it. Number 11, number 11. So, Mike, before we begin to talk about the book All In, who is Mike Michalowicz? For the few who may not know the name Mike Michalowicz, I do and millions of others do, but break down a bit. Start from where you've been, where you're at. The short story is who you are,
Sure,
brought you here today for All In. Recap, who's Mike Michalowicz?
sure. I think it's the majority of people who have no clue who I am, and I totally get it. I mean, but here's who I see myself as:
Okay.
someone that's extremely passionate about entrepreneurship. That's why I have my sign there. I have it in every office I work to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. So many entrepreneurs struggle, and I have had as an entrepreneur. And I committed about 15 years ago because of a traumatic event to reinvestigate everything I understood about entrepreneurship or didn't understand,
Mm.
to find out what works, codify it, document it, put it into a book. If it works for me, maybe it'll work for others. So Profit First is my most popular book. Hopefully All In will be up there with the others, but I've written now, this is my 11th book, and I'm on a mission to help entrepreneurs run successful, sustainable, healthy, growing businesses.
I love it. I'm gonna have to buy a new bookshelf because a lot of my bookshelf is full of Mike Michalowicz. The other authors are jealous. I can hear them screaming at me, Ramon, what about us?
Ramon.
I'm like,
Well, Mike
sorry.
just keeps mailing me more and more books. He drives down to my house. Like he pretends to be an Amazon delivery guy. And I'm like, here's your order of All In again.
I love it. I love it. So, Mike, what's All In about? Who's it for? What's inside of All In? What's it about?
It's
Talk to us.
it's for business leaders. And this one is the first time I extend outside of small business. So
Mm.
the subtitle is How Great Leaders Build Unstoppable Teams. How this came about, Ramon, is interesting. For the first time in my life, I started speaking to a community that you speak with, these larger corporations
Mhm.
too. And I got a call. I won't say the company is. It's a Fortune 500, and they said, "Hey, we want to interview you at our offices to ask you how to recruit employees." I'm like, "Why
Mm.
would you ask a small business guy?" And they said, "We've noticed that small business is underfunded. They don't have the same benefits, yet they are able to draw top talent, A players, whatever
Mhm.
the label is. How do they do it? Because we want to do that." And that became this epiphany: is that you can recruit, retain, and raise the bar for your organization without it being about compensation. It's a component,
Mhm.
but it's not the primary consideration. There's all these other elements, and I documented all those components that make extraordinary teams, and it's led by extraordinary leaders. So you have to be that first, and it shows you how to be that person.
I love that. Before we dive into more inside of it, why do you think there's not? I don't want to get political at all here. I can, but why do you think there's so much a fight to have the number on Indeed and other sites? Just curious, side point, but there was that fight of put the salary number, make it open, transparency. Is
Yeah.
that a separate issue, Mike, than that, or were they fighting the wrong battle, or is that just? Am I totally off base? I was just curious. Why is that? Why
Yeah,
would?
yeah. Well, salary is a legit concern,
Okay.
and it has to be consideration for everyone. Imagine I have the dream job,
Mhm.
and then you come to interview, and I say, well, there's no compensation, by the way. There's everything else. It's a dream. You are
And you
being
kind of
dissuaded.
whisper it. By the way, we have no money to pay you.
Yeah. By the way, you're going to be bankrupt personally, but you're going to love this job. So I am a fan of putting that up front.
Got it.
But I'll tell you how we do it. We ran an ad on a platform and we said, you will not achieve financial freedom here. And if that's your objective,
Mm.
this is not the position. We're looking for someone that does not have financial concerns, but is looking for an outlet to express themselves or something like that. So if you're a creative, for example, and you have maybe the means to fund yourself, maybe you are looking for that self-expression. The thing is to be absolutely integral in what the offer is, right up front, so that the right people can be filtered in and the people who are not a fit can find the opportunities they're seeking elsewhere.
Got it. So let's dive into maybe three components. I'm sure there's a lot people can read All In on their own, but let's dive into three of your favorite or three things that come
Sure.
to mind for you. What's in All In? Three or four key points that we can find there.
All right, then I'll give you four. So there's a model I talk about in the book called FASO, FASO, and I'll give you a little highlight of each. The first thing is to find the fit or the need your organization has so the right people can come to you.
Mm.
Generally, how we've done this historically is we try to match talent to title. I
Mhm.
need a CFO. I need a receptionist. Well, the reality is we don't need a CFO or receptionist. We need people to do certain tasks within that. I had a receptionist who answered the phones, greeted walk-ins when that was a thing back in the
Mhm.
day,
Mhm.
but also did data entry. She was great at a couple components. She stunk at data entry.
Mhm.
Um, and in the past, I would say, well, then she's not a fit. No, she is a fit. In fact, what we did is we realigned her to be a greeter on sales calls. She was a great farmer in building
Mm.
relationships. And our salesperson, who was great at closing deals, stunk at farming, but was amazing at tracking all the details. They became our data entry person. Match talent to task, not title. That's tip one. The
Okay.
next part is ability. And we all know about experiential ability. It's on the resume. If you've done in the past, you can do in the future. At least that's the belief. Some of us know about what's called innate ability, what the predictive index
Mhm.
and Myers-Briggs and Enneagram indicates. But there's another ability that everyone's ignoring, which is the most important. It's potential ability. What
Mm.
could you do in the right environment? So the question, of course, is how do you find potential ability? Well, there's an entire industry. It's a multi-billion dollar industry, almost $1 trillion industry now, that uses potential analysis, and it's the sports industry. We as businesses need to translate that into our application. And here's what it is. They run camps.
Mhm.
I played lacrosse in high school, and I went to a lacrosse camp. I
Mhm.
didn't know this. Not only were they educating and helping each student athlete get better, they were tapping the right kids on the shoulder saying, come to this other field because
Mm.
you're demonstrating potential, and we want to see ultimately if you're a fit for the team. I didn't get tapped on the shoulder,
Yeah.
but I did play in college
Yeah.
because of that camp. I got enough
Mhm.
skills to play at a college, not that college. Well, we can run camps. And I'll give you a real world example. Home
Please.
Depot does this. Next time you take your kids, Ramon, to Home Depot to build like a birdhouse or
Mhm.
something,
Mhm.
they are teaching you how to build a birdhouse. They are ingratiating you with the store. Hopefully, you have a good experience. You buy
Mhm.
from them.
Mhm.
They're also evaluating you. If you are the most enthusiastic, if you're helping other parents build a birdhouse, they'll tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, Ramon,
Mm.
you really show skills here. Have you ever considered working at Home Depot? You're our type of people. Workshops. Basically, it's an opportunity for people to expand their skills and behind the scenes are being evaluated for if they qualify for your organization.
Mhm.
Two more real quick.
Please.
Uh, People need to serve dreams that satisfy their own objectives, their own
Mhm.
initiatives. I came out of my office and said, hey, our company's going to achieve $10 million in revenue and we're going to crush the competition. No one got excited. I'm like, this is the big rah-rah speech. My assistant, my assistant at the time, Patty, said, Mike, that's your dream. What about mine?
Mm.
And I said, well, what is it? She's like, I'd like to learn Spanish. And someone else wanted to buy a house. Someone else wanted to move to a new location. Once I realized we all have our independent dreams, we need to lock arms and serve all the dreams, not just the owner's dream. And my job is not to buy someone a house. My job is not to teach someone Spanish, but it's to keep that dream at the forefront, saying, how can we get you learning Spanish? How can you buy that first house of yours? And maybe as an employer, I can offer some flexibility in the schedule. Maybe I have someone in my network that can support them. But my job is to keep the dream in front of them
Mm.
and know that it's just as important to me as it is to them. And that way, my dream will be just as important to them as it is to me. That's called dream or vision alignment.
Mm. Mm.
And the last thing is ownership. Every company I meet, regardless of the size of the company, says, I wish my employees would act like owners. I hear it over and over again. Well, you can do this by deploying something that was studied in the 80s and then abandoned, called psychological ownership. Psychological ownership is where we have a sense of ownership, even though we don't legally own something. How you do this is like think about owning a car in that you own as opposed
Mhm.
to a rental. When you
Mhm.
rent a car, you're forced to comply and we seek to defy. So if I rent it from Hertz, the
Mhm.
second I leave the DMZ, the
Mhm.
lights are flashing. Like, I will peel out in the parking lot. I'll skid into the parking lot. You punch down on the gas pedal. But a car that I own, I won't treat that way. Now, here's the thing. I actually don't own my car. The bank does. I'm making my payments. They own it legally. But I have control over it. I
Sure.
decide when I want to use it, where I can put it. I have intimate knowledge of it. I know the details of working, and I can personalize it. I
Mhm.
can put my own spin on it, dice on the mirror or something.
Mhm.
In people's jobs, if you are telling them this is what you must do or else,
Mm.
that you're forcing them to comply and they will seek to defy. Instead, if you want them to flourish, you must nourish. Give them an opportunity to personalize things. Give them a sense of control. hey, we want you to be responsible for our inventory. How would you want to see this functioning? How can you make it your own? And when people sense ownership and control over things, they start to feel they own it, and then they care for it the most. That's how you get employees acting like owners.
I love it. One other thing I want to ask you, Mike, is that when you think about All In, so this is a book for leaders, correct? Primarily, this is
Yes,
one of Mike's first books for business leaders. How do I start to implement this, Mike? I read All In, or I'm doing okay. Let's say I'm not a horrible boss. I'm doing okay. I'm reading All In. Where do I start? Do I hire a business coach? Is it just being more intentional, or is it a couple things?
Yeah, it starts off with intentionality, but there is something you can do starting immediately, and it's having one-on-one meetings with your team members. And I suggest doing it at least once every 2 weeks, maybe even weekly, which sounds like an absurd number of meetings. But most business owners leaders meet with their team once a year at review time, and it's usually a correction process. You did these things great, you did that thing wrong, you got to fix that. On a weekly basis, you can simply check in and say, how are things going? This is where the micro connections or corrections happen. And these meetings could be 5-10 minutes. How are things going? It can be a little bit longer. But now, instead of trying to make these massive adjustments, which rarely work, we're constantly staying in sync with people. Lives change. The expectations change. And if you're meeting weekly, and we do it in our office, it actually is less burdensome than meeting, once a year or once every couple of years.
I love it. I'm guessing this meetup also, Mike, it helps you hear things you normally wouldn't hear, meaning that you don't have to have a long meeting for me. Hey, Mike, how are things going? I'm all right. Ooh. And either immediately or in the back of your head, I noted that, Mike, I noticed this, want to have lunch. Is that kind of where this could go as well? The short meeting, but then you can read the person quickly and know he or she needs more attention, or great, things are great, let's keep going, if that makes sense.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. What we found is, I would say, upwards of 80% of the meetings ultimately become just about personal connection and 20% about business. It's not always that way, but it does trigger things. And, as our personal life goes, so does our business life, and vice versa. And I'm not asking you to force intimacy, but it will happen through natural dialogue, and people will reveal things that perhaps you can be of service to that will let them perform better at the office.
Love it. Mike Michalowicz, one more time, the name, well, it's a very simple name, but the name of the book, one more time. The
book is called All In, How Great Leaders Build Unstoppable Teams.
I love it. Mike Michalowicz, anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to share before we go, but this has been great, and I can't wait to share this with the Zone of Genius audience. Anything else I didn't ask you?
I think you've asked everything. I think the question is maybe the size of the business that can deploy this.
Okay.
We've tested this out with micro enterprise, like the one person business who has some remote contractors, and these techniques work. And we've deployed it now with a Fortune 500, and it works, and everything in between. It's not about the size, it's about the interest of empowering your team.
I love it. Mike Michalowicz, thanks for being here today. His new book, All In. My name is Ramon Ray, zoneofgenius.com. This is The Rundown with Ramon.